Have you ever shared an idea where no one even listened? Have you made a joke and no one ever laughed? Have you entered a room and felt invisible and undervalued, like no one even cares about you? Because if you said yes to any 3 of these, you need to watch this video. We live in a world where everyone is fighting for the same attention, and that attention is scarce. So how do you stand out? How do you get people to pay attention to you? How do you get your messages to stick? It comes down to one thing: charisma, understanding the art and science of it so that you know how to influence people, you know how people think, and now you can play the game easier. It wasn't until I decided to study this subject very deeply that I've been able to grow a brand of over 150,000. I've spoken on stages, and I'm way more confident than I've ever been before. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what I learned and how you can apply it to your life too. So let's first break down 2 misconceptions we have about charisma. The first one you're probably thinking is, don't I have to be attractive to be charismatic? I don't have pretty privilege. People just have it easier than me. Let's take the Kardashians as an example. Are they pretty? Absolutely. Gorgeous? Hell yes. But charisma? I don't think so. And here's a clip to prove it to you. This was a scandal that happened 2 years ago where Kim was getting interviewed and the interviewer asked her advice about what do you have for women in business, and look what she said.
I have the best advice for women in business. Get your up and work. It seems like nobody wants to work these days.
That's so true.
You have to surround yourself with people.
Her intention wasn't to be a bitch. I mean, she had a valid point. She was basically saying to work hard because you're not working hard enough. But the part that she really messed up with was when she said nobody wants to work these days. How do you know? You have a nanny raising your kids. You have personal assistants doing your donkey work. The way people felt when they saw her say this was, you don't get my life. I don't have rich parents. I'm working from the ground up. I work night shifts at the ICU hospital every single night. You don't think I'm working hard? I come back home to raise 2 single kids on my own. You don't think I'm working hard? She's come from a privileged life. And so when she speaks, she doesn't have the depth of consideration for the rest of the population who didn't resonate or grow up that way. So when she spoke, she came off as very ignorant and dismissive and tone deaf. And that's the total opposite of charisma, because a person who's truly charismatic doesn't enter an interaction or say something with the intention of being right. They say something to help you feel seen and heard. And so you as a person, when you have charisma, keep in mind that you have the external self-awareness where when you speak, you automatically know how the other person is going to feel. So you frame your words in a way that gets them to resonate. The second myth you need to get out of your head about charisma is, I'm an introvert. I'm too shy. I'm too socially anxious. Don't label yourself as, oh, I'm introverted, so I'm not going to put myself out there. Oh, I'm extroverted. That just means I'm automatically better. That is not true whatsoever, because I guarantee you, you have probably met an extrovert who actually comes off as way more irritating than they do charismatic. There is so much research that shows that most people are ambiverts. You have a little bit of introversion and extroversion in you. You just bring it out in certain situations. And so just because you're an introvert doesn't mean you can't speak on stages. It's not because you're an introvert. It's because you don't know how to navigate those situations the right way. And when you do go in those situations, you're worried about how you're being perceived and you don't want to ruin your reputation. And that is totally okay, but just remember that that's just a skill deficit and you can improve your charisma. All right, so let's talk about the different charisma types. Let's get into the first one, which is called contagious charisma. Jennifer Lawrence is the perfect example of someone who has contagious charisma. Watch right here.
So this is me being your friend. What you just ate is the hottest, most disgusting hot sauce in the world.
Okay.
Nothing's worse than that. And the worst is over.
To be Jennifer Lawrence for Halloween.
Well, I guess I'd start with probably a braid, and just as soon as you walk into wherever you're going, crack open a bottle of wine. Don't worry about the glass. Just carry the bottle.
Because you're from Kentucky. Isn't that a little District 12-y in places? There's a little. I mean, there's coal mining there, and
there is coal mining. I've never volunteered for anything in my life.
No one forced you to come here, I hope.
Don't you feel like she's your best friend? Like you haven't even met her, but you feel so connected to her. The other thing that is so endearing about her in this video is that she has snot dripping out of her nose. She is crying. Her mascara is running. She's so uncomfortable, but she's still putting 100% to show up and answer those questions. You can just tell that in this interaction, she has like no mask on. She's not worried about how she's being perceived. And the best part, right, is when you adopt these mannerisms, now when you're talking to someone, you you automatically put that other person at ease. They feel so much more comfortable around you. Another perfect example of this interaction is with Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, and this interviewer right here.
Be in this movie because I thought.
Hold on a second, dude. Hold on a second. Congratulations. I know it's a year and a half ago you graduated, dude.
Thank you, my friend. Good to see you.
You're kicking ass. You're out in the world. You're kicking ass.
Hanging out with you.
You're in
When
Rio.
The Rock tells this guy to hold on for a second, you can see that this guy's kind of like tensed up. He's a little bit like, what the fuck, why did you just interrupt me? But the moment that The Rock acknowledges him, look at how his body language just completely opens up. Now they high-five each other and they're like bros. Another person who's getting the spotlight these days who really reminds me of contagious charisma is Justin Baldoni.
I've been pretending to be a man that I'm not my entire life. I've been pretending to be strong when I felt weak, confident when I felt insecure, and tough when really I was hurting. I think for the most part, I've just been kind of putting on a show. But I'm tired of performing. And I can tell you right now that it is exhausting trying to be man enough for everyone all the time.
The reason you love him is because he has such deep personal values and he is not afraid to voice them and express them. It requires us to have awareness about what even are our personal values. What do we stand for? And are we courageous enough to share them? That's why when you see someone and you can feel the passion and the presence when they speak, that charisma is what makes you go, oh my God, you are special. You are speaking truth. I'm going to remember what you have to say. That's why a person with contagious charisma is always thinking to themselves, how can I create a ripple effect on the community around me so that they feel empowered? It's less about you and more about bringing up the people with you. And Justin does a great job at that. Now, what's the dark side of having contagious charisma? Because every charisma style does have consequences. A perfect example of this is Alex Hormozi versus Iman Gazdi. These people, both of them, they both are appealing to the same demographic of men. Young men, entrepreneurial driven, into self-improvement. When you look at these people side by side, who do you think has a stronger fan base? You might say both, right? If you're looking at follower count. But look at the reputation of both. And I guarantee you'll notice that Iman has a reputation of being a scammer and sleazy and a little bit off. And it all comes down to personal values. If you look at Alex Hormozi, he'll walk on stage with Crocs. He doesn't give a shit about his appearance, even though he's a multi-millionaire.
Kayla, for example, loves having designer clothes. And for me, I care less about that.
But with Iman, the way he's built his brand is based on lifestyle values. The cars, the Rolexes, and that's not bad. That's totally fine that he's doing that. But the dark side of contagious charisma is when people feel like you have an ulterior motive, that you're trying to manipulate them. Maybe you're trying to sell a product to them and they feel like that product that you're selling and pitching is not actually what it is. You could have the conviction in what you have to say, but if your actions don't line up with what you're saying, you'll make people lose trust in you very quick and your reputation will go down the hill. The second type of charisma is convicted charisma. The first person who comes to my head that embodies this perfectly is Candace Owens. Here's a clip of her.
I identify as a lesbian, black, female, and some people might call me a little bit masculine. With your philosophy, tell me, what does my life look like through your eyes?
I don't have any foregone conclusions about you because I don't know you. A lot of people will try to pigeonhole you because of your identity. They will say, okay, well, you just said that you were lesbian and that you were black, and that's what I was talking about. So that means that you must support transgenderism because we added the letter onto the flag. That's wrong. I don't know you. I'd like to get to know you. I'd like to hear about your ideas. You know, people can become friends on the basis of who they actually are as individuals and not what society is demanding of you based on your sexual preference.
When you hear her speak, what are you thinking? You're probably thinking she is so bold. She fearlessly says what she has to say, even though she knows you might get so mad and offended.
I don't like the games that people play where they do something that's so obviously outrageous, like Lizzo in a thong shaking her ass cheeks. You know what that was. This is A, disgusting, B, perverted. People take their kids to the games. It's like, is there no safe space that's sacred? You got little boys like fans of LeBron James that want to sit there, and now they got Lizzo with her ass cheeks like shaking, and then she's like, if you don't like it, it's your problem. It's like, no, you are being problematic, and now you're playing the game where you do something outrageous, and then when we outrage, you pretend that we're the crazy ones. Stop gaslighting me, okay? You're very large, and you got your ass cheeks out on the side of the court at a basketball game. I reserve the right to now comment on that, and I do. And then
you can tell that she's living in truth. She is fully embodying the words she's saying, and the best part of this charisma is that when you do it the right way, you are a leader. You will make people people worship you, and not in a culty way. Worship you in the sense that they trust your vision and they trust that you will have the answers when we live in a world that is filled with uncertainty. We want to know that there's someone out there who can lead us, who can guide us, who can give us the right answers, who could make us feel like we are safe. Candace does a great job of that. And she may not be right about everything, but you do know that she has the power to sway your opinion. That convicted charisma is very powerful. And you'll see other people do this too. Kanye West has this type of charisma. Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, politicians in general, leaders, Steve Jobs, all of these people have convicted charisma because their whole personality and mission is to sell you on their vision. But the dark side of this charisma is that you can come off as very arrogant. You can be very intimidating, which could make people trust you a little bit less because you don't have enough warmth. And so that is the drawback that you should be aware of, to make sure you're balancing your conviction with your warmth. So now people still feel connected to you and you're still in authority. Now the third type of charisma is called calm charisma. A person who comes to mind who embodies this charisma is Francesca from Bridgerton. She was always so elegant and calm. Like there was so much drama in the family, right? Like people were forcing her to get married really fast and she was taking her time. She was like, no, you do you, you do you, I'm gonna do me. And throughout the whole show, Francesca kept saying to herself like, you know what? I may be really different. I may have different desires in my life and you may not get it. And that's totally okay. I'm here to do me. And so naturally in the show, a lot of the characters felt very safe around her. They were able to confide in her. I almost think of her like having a soothing presence and quiet confidence, thoughtful listening. Now, the dark side of this charisma is that you have to be careful when you bring it out. Because let's say you're in a corporate boardroom of investors and you're pitching something, right? If you have calm charisma, you're closing the gap of connection. Because now the people sitting in that boardroom who are more arrogant and upfront about their beliefs, they will dismiss your opinions because you don't come off as too convicted. And so the dark side of this charisma is that most people who are like this, they really struggle with setting boundaries. They might be even people pleasers. And so just keep in mind, if you tend to lean on this side of charisma, remember to always be mindful of when you're bringing this out. It's a great charisma to bring out if you have to deliver bad news. So if you're a doctor, that's when you would use this charisma. Like even if you're talking on a camera and you're connecting on social media, if you really want to emotionally connect with the viewer so they feel seen and heard and they psychologically trust you, which is the number one thing you need to do, then having calm charisma intentionally with what you're saying can bridge that connection. So now that we've covered those three charismas, there's a big disclaimer you need to remember. You don't need to change your personality to fit a charisma type. One is not better than the other. The point is to just be aware and flexible to the situation you're in. So whenever you talk to someone or you meet someone, ask yourself, what goals are you trying to accomplish? If you're trying to sell yourself, you know to dial up convicted. If you're trying to connect, you can use contagious or calm. If you're trying to comfort, calm. Now that we've covered that, let's talk about the most common mistake people make when it comes to charisma. I've spoken to so many successful professional people in government and politics and cybersecurity and engineering, and the one thing I always think to myself is how much more magnetizing you would be if you just dialed up your energy a little bit. And the problem is that most smart people were rewarded their entire life for being smart. And so they thought that when it came to the real world, they wouldn't need people skills. You could have the best idea for a startup, but if you can't get other people on the same vision as you, which means that you need to connect, you won't get funding. One person who does a great job of this is Healthy Gamer GG. I think that's his name. He's a Harvard psychiatrist. I want you to watch this interview with him and Chris Williamson.
Trataka. So I love your Indian accent. Every word that you say in Indian. I want to do the whole podcast in Indian.
Okay, sure. We can do podcast in Indian. It's no problem. Okay. So first one is Trataka. Okay.
I can't focus. Go back.
You can't focus. I will teach you practice. Right? Interesting. You're talking about not being good. Okay. Don't worry. Don't worry. I will help. I will help.
Okay.
Okay. You can't focus. No problem. Laugh. What is problem? See, laughing is not lack of focus. Let yourself laugh, beta. Come on. Let it out. Let it out. Let it out.
He's the definition of a charismatic person because he's very smart, but he knows how to speak to a broader audience by being very culturally relevant versus someone who's a Harvard psychiatrist and they just bore you to death with their science and their facts and their logic. People want story. They want to feel connected. They want to feel inspired. They want to laugh. So when you can invigorate these emotions out of a viewer or a person, people remember you. Now, what we just talked about is verbal communication, but there's also a whole other aspect to this, which is nonverbal communication. Studies have proven that you have 10 seconds before a person subconsciously decides whether they trust you or not. It's about psychologically making sure that person does not shut down, because we as humans don't just shut down physically, we shut down psychologically first. So there's 4 steps to making sure you master your nonverbal. The first one is when you go and you meet someone or you talk to someone, give a huge hearty smile. Open up. Because what you're doing is you're letting the other person know, okay, you're not an enemy, you're a friend. I don't have to be intimidated by you, you're just a human. Number 2, make a good balance of eye contact. If you're 100% staring into their face, you come off as creepy. If you're 60% looking there on your phone here and there, you come off as dismissive. So making sure you're giving that good eye contact because it shows that you're actively listening. Number 3, unfold your arms and relax. Show your hands, use your gestures. It is so much more boring if I were to sit here and talk to you like this. Use your gestures. This is just boring and I feel uncomfortable. But when you see my hands and I'm moving and I'm animated, you're instantly more interested in what I have to say. And if you study the people you love, you'll notice they all do the same. Number 4 is to nod your head and lean in. And this ties back to active listening. It just shows that you're responsive. It makes the other person think to themselves, okay, this person is paying attention to me. I like that. And you'd be surprised how many people don't pay attention because they have the attention spans of a goldfish. So simple things like this just make you stand out and make you way more magnetic and contagious. Alrighty, let's go down to conversational leverage, which means how do you have leverage in conversation with people? The first thing you need to remember is that you should be well read. So if you're talking to someone, make sure you're aware of pop culture, what's going on in the economy, in politics. You know, a lot of people tell you to not focus on politics, and I agree to a certain extent. Don't let it consume your whole life. But if you want to be taken seriously around people and they're interested in politics and you're around people talking about current events, you look like the dumbass if you have no clue what's going on. And as a woman, I think this is so important because we as women, you know, we just listen to what people say, we find certain topics intimidating, but you have to have a stance on certain things, because it makes people respect you. Or let's say you're interested in cooking and exercise or Pilates. These are all good topics of conversation. Another thing you can use is story. Story is so powerful. A great book you can read about this is Storyworthy and Building a Story Brand. I'm not gonna go too deep into that on this. It's a whole other video in itself. So let's talk about a few principles I want you to remember. So have you ever met someone for the first time and they ask you, how are you? What do you do for a living? When that person asks you that question, they don't literally want to know what you're doing for a living or how you're doing. It's completely irrelevant to them. In their head, they're thinking, please be an interesting person. Please have something to say that I can connect on so this conversation doesn't feel awkward. So let's say you're a makeup artist and someone asks you what you do for a living. You can easily say, I'm from Miami, I'm a makeup artist, but there's not much there. Or you can say, I'm a makeup artist, I'm from Miami, Florida, I work with brides from all over the world, which is so exciting. In fact, last week, I literally did makeup on this one gorgeous bride who was so insecure and her face just lit up after I did it. And it completely made my day. When that person hears what you have to say, it's a touch point. They're thinking to themselves, okay, I know she's a makeup artist. She's very passionate about her work. She loves making women feel so good about themselves, and she's really talented. And so now that person can ask you a variety of questions. How did you become a makeup artist? What are your favorite makeup skills? And you do my makeup for my wedding. Find ways to add more touch points into your conversation, because at the end of the day, when you talk to someone, they are human too. They just want to connect with you. And so you have to do yourself the favor of giving them an opportunity to connect with you. But also remember to let that person speak too. You don't want to dominate the conversation too much either. That's not good either. So in this last section, I'm going to share with you 3 ways you can strengthen your charisma. In this video, I talk about more, but I think these 3 will be very relevant to you. The first one is to practice speaking every day in front of a camera. Pretend that you're about to get interviewed on Jimmy Fallon every day. So grab your phone, go on nature walks, start speaking and really strengthening your voice. The goal is to study yourself. Look at your gestures, look at your voice intonation. See how your facial body language is showing. Do you look a little bit tense? Do you look a little bit awkward? Do you sound robotic? Study yourself objectively so that you know what your weaknesses are, and then you can double down on your strengths. Number 2 is to practice writing more often. When you write, you're essentially taking the thoughts that you have in your head and now you're synthesizing them and connecting them. And when you write, Now you have way more clarity. And I'm telling you, when you write, like actually write, when you speak, you automatically did the hard work. You've already clarified and dissected those thoughts that you were struggling to articulate. And that's why every communication expert will always tell you that the hallmark of great communication is great writing. So one way you can do this is make a commitment to yourself to write 1,000 words every single day. And I promise you, after 3 to 6 months, you will see such a great improvement in the clarity and retention of your speech. You'll be way more concise, all because you decide to master that one skill. The third way you can improve your charismatic communication is just by studying people online. When you study people, you're essentially studying the subconscious cues that they're giving away. And this is great if you're building a brand. So often we think that the people who go viral are just pretty and they got lucky. But when you take it a step further and you use your brain, you realize that life is not just luck. It's about looking beneath the surface and digging a little bit deeper and asking yourself, why are you attracted to certain things? In the first 30 seconds of you watching your favorite influencer's YouTube video, why are you connected to that person? Why do you drop everything to watch this person's video from beginning to end? It's because they're charismatic. They know how to hook your attention. They're creating psychological trust with you. They're sharing stories. Their body language and their gestures are just so invigorating that you can't help but fall in love with them because they're so contagious. This whole concept of charisma is not as hard as we make it seem. It just requires you to have the objective self-awareness to study people. I mean, that's how I developed my charisma. It was through really understanding and asking myself, why do I get so persuaded and captivated by certain people? And how can I leverage their personality traits, their gestures, their intonation, their humor, their vulnerability, their empathy into my communication. And once you do that, you, my friend, will be so much more powerful, get your ideas to resonate with so many more people, and you'll never be underestimated or misunderstood ever again. If you want more on this, you can watch this video right here or check out my podcast at the Simi and On Show. I have a few more topics about this. But thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.